Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thanks. It's really great to really be back in my first formal conversation since maternity leave. So yeah, I'm like adult interesting conversation.
Okay, well, I want to talk about what brought you to this path and what you're
Yes,
doing and who you are. But first, let's talk about that baby because she just turned 1.
she just turned
So,
1. Yeah, she's a real ham. She's got a wild personality, and man, what a rewarding experience to watch someone become themselves. There's all these things that people say about becoming a parent, like, oh, you don't know until you're a parent. It's like, what? It's it's because you can't describe it. You can't explain what the experience is like. It's the most awesome, terrible thing I've ever been through. The first year of a baby. It's intense, but I'm really loving it and very happy to have done it at 38 and 39. I have so much respect for everyone who did it much younger. This would not have been as fun, I think, in different periods of my life, for
it
sure.
is really fun, isn't it?
It's really fun. Yeah,
Mhm.
she's walking and gibbering,
Mhm.
um, and that so if toddler time is officially started, and I love it. I
It,
love
it
the
really just
toddlers.
becomes more fun. It really does.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're super
And I think
rad.
your perspective on everything changes.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and really, it's these teachings, this yogic teachings in the Bhagavad Gita have resurfaced and revealed themselves in a different way through many periods of my life, right? But this is the first time that I've watched them reveal themselves to me in an animated form, if that makes sense,
Yeah, it
right? So
does.
I'm watching them happen in real time, out kind of what's inside me, but it's also I'm watching it outside of myself, and it's like, whoa. Oh, there she is. She's buying into the identity lie. She's learning she's separate. It's so approaching motherhood from this lens, I think, is adds a level of comedy.
I bet it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Mhm.
children are older since from since I found this lens, but I'm sure that it does.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
cool. It's really
that's
cool.
very cool. Okay, so prior to Lou coming a year ago, tell us about what brought you to where you are, to plant medicines, to yoga, to what you're doing, to the beautiful work you're teaching.
Oh man. Um, what really brought me into all this, honestly, was like I tripped and fell and got dragged into the mud, and I sat up, and this was just there. And it was the first time that I found it was the first time that I found like a taste of peace. Like I knew life had promise, and I knew that life didn't need to be as hard
Mhm.
with so much turmoil. Um, I was so in my like childhood, teens, 20s, I was not good at it. I'm like, I made the
But at what
plan.
exactly? Life?
Life, like
Yeah,
this is what you do to achieve happiness, right?
yeah.
We
Okay.
make these plans, we train, and then it's 15, 16, we make these plans, and then we execute the plans. And if you do it, you will be rich, happy, and successful, and life will be good.
Right.
And I got there and I was miserable. I was miserable and I was a mess, and I was prescribed tons of medications just to like continue to maintain a life that did not work. And not at any point did anyone say, like, is this what you want to be doing? There's alternatives. And yoga came early for me in that journey. It was 2002. It was introduced to me.
Okay.
And it was a great workout. You know, it like kept my little teen high school body good for my early 20s. And
Hmm.
that's why I
Hmm.
loved it, which is great. Great.
Yes.
And then I discovered psychedelics in high school. And that was really profound in the sense that it like kind of in one moment cured crippling social anxiety. And it became like just this social fun thing to do. It wasn't very serious. It wasn't ceremonial. It was just something we did every once in a while. And it allowed me to kind of be a part of the social scene of my peers.
Yeah.
So eventually these two paths just kind of started to merge. And I think it was 2014. I was in an area of the world where I didn't have anyone to talk to, but we had the internet, and me and my roommate, we just started growing our own mushrooms and sitting each other while we experimented. And Joe Rogan was talking about it in the isolation tanks, so we were starting to do that. And I was also becoming an Ashtanga devotee at the time. So they really just, and and my life has gone through a lot of different things, and they just kind of kept coming together. They just kept coming back together, right? Fast forward, the apocalypse,
Yes.
quarantine.
Yep.
I got to step away from my life again and got to meet ayahuasca for the first time. And that was like a coronation ceremony that was like, yeah, why are you doubting? Why are you doubting? And we really just, in my full weekend of ayahuasca, that first time, it was like we sat there and I just was shown the teachings and just like, yes, yes. And I was like, yeah, can we get on with it? Can you like put these, can you do this thing now? So that's really what started me putting these two together. Not just in my personal life, but like really delivering them out into the world. Like, yeah, these go together. Like, can we? So that's what I've been doing. Just talking about it and doing more psychedelic preparatory work and integration work with my clients one-on-one. And yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
It's like, how did I get here? I'm like, I don't even
Yeah.
know, really.
Yeah, right. How do any of us get here?
Right?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your studying because when I first met you, it was through your Bhagavad Gita class.
Mm-hmm.
Through we went to Soul Quest, and that's where we drank the medicine. And
Mm-hmm.
I started taking this class from you. And well, you can't see it because I have this thing on, but it was life changing for me. I hadn't read this book before. I hadn't even heard of this book before, and it was just incredible. So let's talk about first how you got to study this book and what this means to you.
Yeah, so when I did my first 200-hour yoga teacher training under Baron Baptiste's Power Yoga. And I had an amazing teacher, Desiree Melonius. And it was just this really cool, awesome group that was like happening in New Jersey. And when you get your yoga teacher training, there's like a list of books that everyone has to buy and you're supposed to read. And we kind of like glanced through them. But she kind of really leaned into the Bhagavad Gita with us. And we had a joke that we were like, oh, we went through spiritual enlightenment and did a little yoga too. And that was like what we joked about our fitness heavy power yoga 200-hour teacher training. We did a little yoga, but what we were doing was the Raja yoga, the big full yoga. And there's a few passages in that book that just kind of like leapt out and like slapped me. And it took me about 3 years to read the Bhagavad Gita fully, cover to cover, because I would just read a little bit and then have to like chew on it for a while, and just the simply reading it, it just changes you. And every time you read it, it changes. And you just keep coming back to it and you keep reading it, and it just, and that's what Veda means. It's knowledge that reveals itself to you in time, right? And the first teaching of yoga is Atta Yoga Shunasanam. Now the teachings of yoga begin. And what that means is that everything that you've experienced and all of your wisdom and all of your knowledge attained from the first moment that you were caused up until now allows you to hear this teaching and to receive it in the way that you will receive it in this moment. We can't teach you anything that you don't already know. We can just widen the spotlight and put your focus more into the teachings, the things you already understand inside. And that's the Gita, right? It's
Did
awesome.
you read it by yourself the first time? Did you read it with somebody, with a teacher?
We were supposed to read it for school, for the yoga school training, but like we like didn't really go over it too much. It was just like, are you reading it? And that's how it is in a lot of the yoga world. It's like these books are on the bookshelves in the lobbies, but like no one's really reading them. So I didn't know that, and I read it. So I read it by myself with no direction. And then I've gotten to more recently, I read it under very thorough guidance through Mount Madonna. And they have a free group that is formal Ashtanga yoga. And they're lovely. A lovely couple guides you through the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, so I got to revisit it probably about like 10 years after I've been kind of reading it myself, you know?
Okay, so let's get into a little bit. So at the very beginning, there's a quote, and it says, "On this path, effort." Wait a minute, sorry. "On this path, effort never goes to waste, and there is no failure. Even a little effort towards spiritual awareness will protect you from the greatest fear."
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. So, do you feel that that's what the Bhagavad Gita is trying to say? What do you think what is the Bhagavad Gita about?
Oh.
Generally.
Generally. Well, let me answer your first,
Okay.
talk to your first statement. My partner, the psychedelic world is his world. And that was a big reason why this kind of bloomed into my life a lot more. And I crack up and joke around. I say, we're on the same path. Yours is a little bit more zip back. Whereas the yoga and the Gita is a slow walk, right? Drinking ayahuasca is a Lamborghini. Reading the Bhagavad Gita and doing yoga it's manual. It's a slow walk. And it's over lifetimes, right? It's not something that you do and achieve like getting belts in jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you do slowly, and you look back and say, whoa, man, that really had a much bigger impact than it feels like when it's happening. It's a little bit more subtle. A lot of it's more subtle. And it really is riddles until it's not. And a lot of these teachings that have been spoken to me by different teachers over the years, it'll be years later and I'll stop in my tracks and I'll go, that's what they meant. Yes, that's what they said. That was what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. I had no idea what they were talking about until this moment. And that's like really, really cool facet. But what is the Bhagavad Gita about? Everything.
It is about everything. Okay, the surmise of it though, right? It's a conversation.
Okay, so it is taking you to the most gruesome human experience. Civil War.
Hmm.
Hand-to-hand combat civil war where you know everybody there. Like not country civil war. Think more like everybody that goes to your biggest extended family holiday and your neighbors. And you can stand there and name everyone. And now you need to sit there and stab some of these people through the belly with a sword. And that's something that's really distanced from our reality right now. You know, we can watch it with movies, but if we really sink in and think about that, that's intense. That's heavy. And the intensity of what I believe as to why this is the setting is because here in this conversation that is minutes, some say a breath, some say maybe an hour, our main character has a divine spiritual awakening through this conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, but it's through your higher self and your heart, Arjuna, right? And in the very end, so it's the teachings of yoga, the teachings of how to walk lightly in this world and carry a light heart. So when you put your heart on the scale with the feather in Egypt myth, your heart is light and you can ascend because you're not carrying the sadness and the regrets and the suffering and just being in this contention, in this battle with your existence, with life. It's to be free from all of that. And the practices of how to do it and how to follow that journey. But more importantly, how to inspire within yourself to walk your own path to liberating yourself from suffering. And if we can do it on this battlefield, where the last teaching is now run your sword through the belly of those that I've already slain. You still got to show up and participate with the drama of life. If the teachings are being given in this moment, there is no part of our life or our human experience where it doesn't work, where it's like, oh, I'll do that once I get my life good. Or like, I can't really approach that right now because my life is such a mess. It's like, this is actually what that's for.
Mm-hmm.
This is what that's for, you know? And then it becomes tricky to like keep doing it when your life is good. Right? That's the next kind of joke. But yeah, it's how to that battlefield is also the battlefield inside yourself. It's the turmoil in your soul. And how do you find peace? How do you find peace within? And you know, there's we figured this out before we figured out indoor plumbing. This was a key priority of early humans.
There's so much to unpack. There's so much to unpack that
Of course.
it's just unbelievable. I love this book. I love these teachings. Okay, so essentially this they're saying this could be a conversation of 5 minutes, a breath, an hour.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime of lessons, and every time I think why I love this so much, and you said it earlier much more eloquently than I could, but every time you read it, it brings different meaning. And what I'm going through in my life, it brings different meaning to it. So the lessons are literally endless.
Endless. Endless.
Literally.
Literally, yeah. I think I made a joke. I was like to my teacher directly, Ryan Strong, and I was like, when do we stop healing? And he was like, you run out of material?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You're never going to run out of material.
Yeah. That was, yeah, it's kind of what we're doing here.
Hmm.
You know?
What is your, let's talk about one of your favorite passages from the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh
And
man.
honestly, Rachel, it took me about 2 months to learn how to say Bhagavad Gita.
You know,
I couldn't say it. Every time I try to say it, and pronounce it, I couldn't say it.
Sanskrit's really cool, and the sounds that Sanskrit um, makes is it's taken a lot for me to kind of move the shape of my mouth in order to be able to make the sound, because it's Sanskrit's not about how it's written or how it's spelled. It's about the notes of the resonance that you hit when you're using the syllables, that it evokes the meaning and the understanding within. That it's not like it's just a very different form of language, right? So yeah, I'm not a great pronouncer either. Gosh, that's so funny. I've got like 4 different copies, but this one's my favorite. It's just the one that spoke to me the best. Gosh, what is my favorite? I'll just read out my favorite classic, because I was raised very strongly Christian. My dad was Roman Catholic. My mom was Mennonite. We went to Methodist church. So it was like we got all of it, right? And I felt like a failure, that I had sinned way too much, and that this was my one shot, and I messed it up. And I was like 22, and I already messed it all up. Right? I broke all the rules. I had a really good time doing it. But so this was what was one of kind of the first teachings that really kind of gave me some salvation, that I wasn't lost. Let me see where I wanted to start. This is in chapter 2. And I'm gonna read a little bit longer thing, but then I'll give you like the quote that really got me. There was never a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor any of these kings, nor is there a future in which we shall cease to be. Just as the dweller in this body passes through childhood, youth, and old age, so at death we merely pass into another kind of body. And the wise are not deceived by that. I'm going to skip a little ahead. Know this: unborn, undying, never ceasing, never beginning, deathless, birthless, unchanging forever. How could that die? The death of the body? I'm going to skip forward a little bit more. Worn out garments. This is what got me. Worn out garments are shed by the body. Worn out bodies are shed by the dweller. Within the body, new bodies are donned by the dweller like garments. Not wounded by weapons, not burned by fire, not dried by the wind, not wetted by water. Such is the Atman. And the concept of reincarnation seemed kind of like this silly kind of voodoo, I don't know, whatever thing, like kind of like written off in my mind up until that point. But this just made so much sense. And it was just so true. And it was like, this isn't your one shot. Like, of course, like, yeah, that's why babes and young children come in knowing so much, because they've done this before. We just need to get the equipment working, you know, like, my arm, you know, we got to learn. Oh, these are my hands. Okay. How do I pick something up? All right. All right. But the conscious being that is inside of you, your soul, doesn't die with your body. And your soul is not then committed to eternal damnation if you like mess up for this speck of time. And in the grand scheme of things is like nothing. You're not judged on this little speck to then eternally suffer. You know, it's like you're part of the system as well. You're part of it. And it's just an endless access to life. It just, you know, it like, it really sparked a light in a very, very deep depression.
Well, it's a message of hope.
It's a message of hope. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like this whole book is a message of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I'd like to go on and talk about your course. I'd like to, I mean, I could talk about this all day long with you. So I'm gonna stop that right now and talk about your course. Tell us about that.
So the Bhagavad Gita group where you and I met was like the first time that I was really transitioning to online. And that was such a different platform for me. And thank you everyone that attended to that. Like, that was such an amazing experience for me, and it really helped shape and cultivate the foundations for this course. And what I did, so this is a Raja Yoga course. It's 13 rounds, sessions, weeks. Really where we, oh gosh, we take the roots of the first couple chapters of the Bhagavad Gita and we combine them with the ethics, basically how to reduce friction in life and harm reduction of Ashtanga Yoga. And we build on top of that what that early conversation is in the Bhagavad Gita is in recognizing your stress response. Knowing your own personal reaction to stress. And then connecting your spiritual practice and your yoga teachings and your tools and your medicine into decompressing and deconstructing your stress response so that when you are in a moment of life where you have nothing left, you can manually override your stress response, bring your frontal lobe back online, and be able to navigate life from your heart. Because life doesn't stop being hard. So how do we take these teachings of yoga that we contemplate and think about? And how do we take our meditations that seem to like add credit to our stress resiliency in the bank, you know? And how do we take our medicine ceremonies that lift us up, but then it fades? Lifts it up and then it fades. And how do we anchor that into our body so that the shift is permanent? And then in our spiritual path comes responsibility to be a safe human, right? And built within the yoga teachings, the first two limbs of Ashtanga Yoga aren't exercise. It's harm reduction. So we unpack those yamas and those niyamas to become safe humans along the spiritual path, and how to conduct our healing and our healing with others and our integration with our life around us to reduce friction and reduce our impact and to walk lightly. Right? So Raja Yoga is my first full formal course and series that I have brought online. And they're 2 hours long. Live discussion, we have a teaching, and we workshop these tools. And we workshop our stress response with each other. And it's a closed group for privacy. And we work together. And it's definitely a co-collaboration and bringing these teachings to life. Yeah, it's
Bring them into fruition into your life.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you tell little details about the course?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So some of the classical teachings that we're going to go over, we're going to talk about Samkhya philosophy, which is a really beautiful philosophy about the structure of reality. How consciousness manifests into you to create your thoughts and your ego mind complex, all the way down to your sensory feedback. In how, not only how we are working with the interface of material reality, but also how we process it and how that informs our experience of life and our story. And within that, we discover the location of our ego within our mind spirit complex, and we develop a loving relationship with it. Right? So that's one of my favorite parts about this course. Is deconstructing reality and bringing it in. What does kindness actually mean? What does do no harm actually mean? It's not about being a martyr. You know, you're part of this too. So all of these teachings, it's where is that place that does the least harm between me, you, the sky, the home that we live in, and the 7 generations. Right? Those waiting to be born, those just born, those in the prime, those giving wisdom and on their way out, those just passed, those in the bardo. What is the best, least harm? And how do we bring kindness, honesty, integrity, stewardship? And then translate to that to who you are in your culture, where you live, in your community. What does that mean? It's not going to be the same for me as it is for you. And if we operate from that place, we are supported. Right? And shit happens. We make mistakes. Things are messy. Things are going to be bad. Things are going to be great. But when we operate from this place, it's like there's some safety in that. In protecting and nurturing the part of us that lives forever. Right? At the beginning of every single chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, how does a man like that walk? How does a person that's enlightened walk? How does a yogi look? Tell me what to do. Krishna responds with riddles. And it really is like, you need to take these teachings and translate to what they mean to you.
Yes.
So through the 13 weeks, I'm going to be sharing with what my teachers say it means. I'm going to be sharing with what I've interpreted it as. I'm going to ask you guys to share what you think it means. And together as a community, this is how we flush out these teachings. So we go 13 weeks.
Okay.
And it's 2 hours. You get a full video recording for you to download and keep forever of the teaching portion. But I don't record the private shares.
Okay.
You get a worksheet. We get things to do. I like to say things to do.
That's the fun stuff.
We get some things to do in the days in between. Sometimes it's contemplating, sometimes it's journaling, but it's really kind of observing your own relationship with your daily spiritual practice and curating it to make it work for you. So my goal is that by the end, we all have a daily meditation practice. But if you're not there yet, then, you know.
Yeah.
What else? What else? What else? If you can't make the live, there is an option to just get the lecture series. And then to email me your thoughts in between each week. So like your report back or whatever. And we can, with your permission, bring that into the group discussion, or I can just communicate with you privately in email to help you work through the teachings yourself.
Okay.
But
and when does this start?
April 7th. So it's Fridays,
Mm-hmm.
9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome. You can find the information on the Plant Medicine Path. Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
I am really excited for this class that you're offering it. I feel so honored that you're doing this through the Plant Medicine Path. Everybody who's listening, who's thinking about taking this course, Rachel, you've got a way of teaching these beautiful lessons that I can hear it in a way that I can't hear it when I'm just reading it myself or trying to learn it myself, or maybe I couldn't hear it from somebody else. You have a way about doing this, and it's really quite special.
The yoga, these teachings are taught in a continuous chain from teacher to student, teacher to student, teacher to student. And it's really important along the way. And this is a big olive branch that I want to reach out into the psychedelic community, is to hook yourself up to a chain of teachers and students. And in that way, we keep each other in balance and we keep each other healthy, from our ego mind.
Yes.
So it's what I think that you're touching and what you're feeling is not me. It's the chain that I've gotten to connect into. And I get to pass this massive group of awesome people all of their teachings for generations. So when you connect with a teacher that's in a chain, it just hits different. It just comes different.
Yeah.
And then that links you into
hear it differently.
You hear it differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. Let's continue this conversation. You can find all the information on Rachel and her amazing course that's going to start next month on the Plant Medicine Path. I'm just really excited. I'm super excited for this. Do you have a limit of how many come into the group?
It's interesting because I might keep it a little bit smaller, around 15.
Okay.
I know that I've had the capacity of 23. That was like my limit before, but this is my first round back off of maternity leave. And in this conversation, I'm like, oh, I'm very meandery. The class is a lot more organized.
No, it's just the way it's supposed to be.
I just want to make sure that everyone is able to get seen and heard and connected with. So purchasing through the Plant Medicine Path, I put the limit at 23. But we may cap it at 15. I have to sit with that and really be honest, because I want to really make sure that everyone that comes can be connected with and attended to. And if we go over 15, we will open up a second cohort and do another time. So if Friday at those times does not work for you, feel free to reach out and let us know. And if you need, if we get enough people that need a Saturday or a after business hours cohort, we can do that.
Okay.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you again.
Thank you.
medicinepath.com. You can find Rachel's course, and any questions, you can reach out to her as well. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you.